Hello, everyone. Welcome to Peer Delegation. How do I manage my peers? I'm Candace Thorson, Senior Staff Writer at GovLoop. So far today, we've learned how to become a person of influence without burning out, and how to make plans in an uncertain world, which, if you were like me, found them extremely thought-provoking. Now we're going to talk about peer management. So the question is, what happens when you're leading a project, but you don't actually have official authority over the people on your team? So you have to build alliances, right? You have to set clear and strategic rules and expectations. You have to be transparent, and you have to define and document metrics of success. So the speaker we're about to hear from is going to help us do all of that, giving us best practices for developing a peer management strategy, setting effective communication protocols, and creating boundaries and timelines. But before we start, there are a few things, housekeeping things I have to go over. So if you just bear with me a little bit. If you're on Twitter, please share what you learned using the hashtag NextGenGov. We have some really great resources available for you to download, including this slide deck. And you can find those in the resource module on the right-hand side of your console. So check that out. We obviously hope you don't have technical difficulties, but things happen. So if you do, send us a message. And my colleague, Julia, will help you out. You can use the Q&A tab also to submit questions to our speaker. And we definitely want your questions. And I know she's looking forward to them, so don't be shy. You can engage with your other attendees through the same open chat. Just click on the blue group chat button in the middle of your screen down at the bottom. And just so you know, we're recording this event, so tomorrow we'll email you a link so you can catch up on all of the sessions that you missed. We also are giving 1 CPE credit for your participation in today's session. So to get that credit, you have to do 3 things. You have to take all the polls that we do. You have to participate in the whole session. And then afterward, you have to fill out a post-evaluation form. And you can find that form in the resource module or in the Resource Center in the main virtual summit environment. And we'll email all CPEs to you directly once you confirm that you've met all those requirements. So now that I've gotten all that out of the way, I want to introduce you to our expert. Joining us is Carolyn Mooney. She is an instructional designer and founder of Enough LLC. She has 18 years of experience in federal background investigations, training, leadership development, mentoring, and coaching. She loves working with people to help them unleash the power they possess and help them become who they were meant to be. So without further ado, Carolyn, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. I am really excited to be talking with all of you today. And thank you for choosing the Peer Delegation, How Do I Manage My Peers presentation. I know that there's a lot of great presentations that are out there, and I am honored and privileged that you decided to spend your 10:15 to 11:15 or your 11:15 to 12:15 hour with me. So thank you very much. And as Candace mentioned, I encourage you to ask questions as we go along. I'd like this to be as interactive as possible. I have presented at NextGen for several years now, probably about 5-6 years now. And we're usually in person, and so I can get the interaction that way. But really, I want to make sure that you recognize that this presentation is for you. So if you would like to write in the chat box, just A, first make sure it's working, and B, tell me what you're hoping to get out of today's presentation, B, so I can tailor it to you and your needs so that you get what you came for. So feel free to write that in the chat box, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. My background is in investigations and advanced solicitation and interrogation, which that's not what I'm telling you should be doing with your peers and when you're managing them. But I'm going to talk to you about empathy-based listening, and I'm going to talk to you about how to really be an active listener. And what makes a good leader is really quite simple. And that you can read all these leadership books and you can go to all of these leadership seminars, but really it just comes down to being a good human being. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to fine tune your skills, that leadership is different for each person. The way that I lead and the way that Candace leads and Julia leads are all very different, but they're based on our personality. Doesn't mean that one way is right or one way is wrong. So let's just start with that, right? So let's get into what we're actually going to be covering today. So when we talk about peer delegation, we're talking about how do you, first of all, identify who you are as a person and who you are as a leader. And then how do you put all of that together into the project lead role and then empower people to be able to move forward and move a vision and a project forward when, as Candace mentioned, you're in a position where you don't have direct authority over them. And this is something else, that little nugget that I'm sure you've heard before, but leadership is a title that is earned. It is not given. It's not something, well, I'm a leader now, and so you must listen to what I say. It's not the way that it works. People will follow those who lead, and even if that means leading from where you are. So it's something that you grow into. So I want you to pay attention. If you are a current leader, great. If you're thinking about becoming a leader, that's great as well. And then, as Candace mentioned, we're going to have a path forward of how we make you successful as a lead, and whether that's a project lead, team lead, and then leading bigger teams moving forward. Okay. We want so some of the things that people have listed was, I hope to learn tools to assist in me leading my peers as I manage projects, not necessarily people in my position. Yes. And manage attitude. Ooh, attitudes. I love attitude. How to manage attitudes that come from a difference in perceived hierarchy that leads to dismissive of requests. That's what we call, I'm originally from New Jersey. I'm from South Jersey. I know Candace is from Northern New Jersey. That's what we call tude, and we're going to deal with that, right? You're going to deal a lot with it. So the way our presentation today is structured, it's kind of 3 separate parts, but they all come together. So we're going to talk first about your leadership brand and you, specifically you. And then we're going to talk about what is the job of a project lead. And then the third part of the conversation is going to be, how do you take you and the job of the project lead and put it together to be successful? As you've already been able to tell in this short time that we've been talking, I'm a big hand talker, so I apologize if my hands are kind of all over the place. I have a dress on that has pockets, so I will try to keep my hands in my pockets as much as possible, but sometimes I can't help it. I just get excited about all things leadership. Some other questions or some concerns people want to know about is, I feel like I know how to manage projects, but I struggle with managing people. Managing people is hard. One of the biggest mistakes that leadership and management does, is they take somebody who is really good at doing and they put them in charge of people. You're a really great engineer, so you should be able to lead engineers. And that's not the case. And not all people like managing people. All people don't like people. So it's really, it's a fine skill set. And okay, so let's get started. I'm excited. So who am I? That's a question you should be asking yourself. Who are you as a person? When you work for any company or any organization or any agency, all you have is your reputation. That's it. Who you are as a person is defined by the actions that you do and at work. They are defined by the work that you perform, by the product that you produce, and the attitude that you have. That's it. That's what you have as a reputation. Think about when somebody new comes to your team. If you're in government, people move around government frequently. They'll go from one department to another. In some agencies, it's often encouraged every 2 to 3 years, people move around. And usually the first thing people do is they don't ask about their skill sets. They ask about, what do you know about that person? What do they like? So I ask that of you. If people were to ask behind your back, who are you, before you're going for a new position, what would they say? What is your reputation? I like to use the analogy of amusement parks because I love amusement parks. And for me, it's a good analogy. And if it doesn't, I have another analogy that works after this. But for me, there's amusement parks. And amusement parks are on a spectrum. You have everything from a carnival, which sets up in a day, tear down in a day. Customer service isn't the greatest. It's kind of scary. You could die probably at a carnival with a ride if not held properly, all the way up to Disney World, right? So you have Disney World over here. Before Disney World, you have Universal Studios, and then you have things like Busch Gardens and King's Dominion and Great Adventure, and then your carnival rides. All of those amusement parks on the spectrum all serve the same purpose: to provide entertainment and fun to the patrons. Just like all of you, when you go to work, are to provide the same level of service. You're there to work, right? So in theory, you and amusement parks are very similar. You have a mission, and that mission is to show up to work and do your job. But it's the nature in which you do your job that helps build your reputation, right? So you think about, if anyone has been to amusement parks, let's say money was not an object, because I think you need basically a down payment now to go to Disney World. But if you want to go to any of these parks, which park would you choose? I know what I would choose. I would choose Disney World. And the reason I would choose Disney World is because I know I'm paying a lot of money, but I'm getting what I pay for. I'm getting clean bathrooms. I'm getting clean sidewalks. I'm getting amazing customer service. I leave there knowing that the money I have spent was well spent and I can create memories from that. I encourage you that if you want to build your brand, you find out where you want to be on that spectrum and think, what am I doing to build that brand so I don't even have to be in the room for people singing my praises and talking about me in positive ways? So think about that when you go about your day of like, what am I doing to be the Disney World? Now, if Disney World's not your thing or amusement parks aren't your thing, think about cars. Right? You think about cars and you think, or hotels, but I'll stick with cars. You have a Ford Focus, nothing wrong with a Ford Focus, just a very practical car. And then you have, let's say, a Lamborghini and everything in between, from Range Rovers to Mercedes to, Toyotas and Hyundais. And you have all of these cars in between. A car in its basic function is to do one thing, get you from point A to point B, hopefully safely, but that's it. Their job is to get you one place to another. Again, do you want to be a Ford Focus? Again, nothing wrong with Ford Focus, and I'm not picking on anyone on the call who's got a Ford Focus. I love Ford Focus. But I want to be a Maserati, or I want to be a car that people dream of having because they know with me, they're getting top-notch work. They're getting top-notch craftsmanship. Why do you think Lamborghinis or Ferraris cost so much money? I think Lamborghinis, they hand make every single part of the car, right? Because it's the attention to detail that gives Lamborghini the reputation that people will pay $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for the car. So a way that you can start to identify your brand is identify your values. Right? Identify what I consider your non-negotiables, the things that matter most to you, and define who you are as a human being. And then I encourage you to come up with a mission and vision statement. A lot of times people think mission and vision statements are only for businesses or for products like Nike or Facebook or Google or McDonald's. I encourage everyone to have their own brand because your brand becomes your compass. When you know what your values are, and you have your mission statement, which is who you are and how you do your job and how you do anything. And your vision is where you see yourself going and how you're going to get there. That helps make decisions for you in the future. Whether that is, hey, do you want to take this opportunity as a project lead? Does it fit with my vision of eventually wanting to lead people? Yeah, it does. Okay, I'm going to move. That sounds like a position that I want to go into. Once you've established an excellent reputation, this is how you get selected for the opportunity to be a project lead, or even to be in other opportunities that may not be a project lead, but for other opportunities in your organization. Maybe there's something new that's starting up and they want you to be part of it. Maybe it's, your supervisor is looking for a replacement. So working on succession planning. So work on that reputation. And if you feel brave enough, I say, if you don't know what your reputation is, ask people. Ask your coworkers. When you work with me, what do you think of? Like when I work on projects, we call them 360 evaluations. Ask the people that you work with how they would define the experience they have working with you. And that'll help you define who you are. And the great thing is, if you don't like the reputation that you have, you're the only one that can change that. So it takes a lot of responsibility and accountability to be able to make those changes. But it's good to know, like here, you're thinking you're a hard worker and everyone sees you and like, oh no, she's out of here by 2:00 every day. But maybe they don't know that you come in at 5 a.m. or you're online at 5 a.m. now that we're all working from home. So think about that, of creating your vision and mission statements as well as your value statements. I encourage you to also look at companies or look at athletes or look at, anybody that you see as a leader in the work, either the field that you're in or just overall a leader, and see what are the traits that they have. And we're going into a little more detail about that further in the presentation. So we have our first poll question. So now we talked about you as a brand. Now we're going into the second section of what does a project lead actually do? So that's my question. How would you define a project lead? Is it an addition to your regular job responsibilities? Is it a stand-in for your boss? They're busy that day, or they're away for a week's vacation and they need someone to manage the group. So that's what you've gotten selected to do. Is it punishment for always doing a good job? Sometimes the worst thing you can do is be successful, because then you get picked for everything. Or a chance to showcase your leadership skills to your peers, your supervisor, and your organization.
Okay,
There's
we'll
a question.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. We'll just give it another second or so.
Okay. I just want to answer a question because it touches on the branding in the just the previous slide. That someone asked a question about how would you recommend if your values conflict with your organization's values, goals, and expectations? This is an excellent question, because a lot of times people are unhappy with the organization that they're with and they don't know why. And the reason that they often are dissatisfied or unhappy with their job is because their values and their mission and vision don't align with the mission and vision and values of the organization that they're with. So this is an extreme example, but I love animals. I was a vegetarian for like 8 years. Bacon made me go back to the dark side. I'm sorry to any vegetarians out there, but bacon was too good and fake bacon was just not good enough. So I went back to eating meat, but doesn't mean I don't love animals just the same. If I were to work at a slaughterhouse, I could not think of a worse job. I'd rather pick up trash with my bare hands. Like, I can't think of a job that would be more not in alignment with what I'm doing and who I am as a person than to do that. So there's two suggestions. If your values do not align with your organization's values, maybe it's time to find a different organization to become a part of. Or it may require a little investigation and see, are there things within your job or within your organization that you can find value in? Right? My husband had a job where he had to meet with medical companies, actually doctors' offices. He worked for a pharmaceutical company that was testing new drugs for schizophrenia and for people who are sight impaired and can't sleep at night. They usually find themselves like up all night and sleeping during the day. So because this medication was on a trial period and it was not covered by insurance, the insurance would only cover the medication if the doctor said it was necessary, like all other medications were tried, they were unsuccessful, that this medication was the only thing that they would try to work, and then insurance would pay for it. So my husband had to go around to different doctors' offices. And my husband is very much an introvert, and he doesn't really like talking with people, and to put himself out there was just very uncomfortable. But it was a discussion that we had of saying, like, can you see the silver lining? I know this is not necessarily the job you want, but it's the job you have right now. Is there something that you can see of value in the job that you have now? And in talking back and forth, it was the idea of you're helping people get the medication that they so desperately need that without insurance would cost tens of thousands of dollars. So even though this job is making you uncomfortable and it's not something that you really enjoy, you are helping people. And helping people is a value of his. So it's trying to tie other things within your organization that may not be apparent that tie to your values. But I would say overall, if the values are so different, then I would say go to another organization, or, if there's just no, like me in a slaughterhouse where we're never going to meet, that may be the answer. I hope that answers your question. Okay. So 74% said to showcase your leadership skills. The 1.9%, I feel you with the punishment of always doing a good job. Like I said, sometimes success is your own worst enemy. You're like, yeah, you did a great job. Here's more work. Oh, thank you. I was hoping to leave early today, but I guess that's not the point. So excellent. It is a chance to showcase your leadership skills. And the way that you do this, again, by building your brand and a solid, good reputation brand, you will be selected for positions like a project lead to then showcase your leadership skills, right? Here you are building this reputation. You're doing all the good things. You're like, hey, put me in, coach, put me in, coach. This is your opportunity as a project lead to do that. So let's talk about what actually is a project lead and what are your responsibilities. So as I mentioned, this is the second portion. So your responsibilities are fairly basic, but they're very detailed, right? You don't really have many responsibilities, but those responsibilities do have very deep roots. And so let's talk about uniting a team. It's really important when you are working on a project that you have a team that is united, maybe not in liking you, but in believing in the project and the mission that they're pushing forward. We can't expect everyone to like us. If you go, I know this is kind of dating myself too, but like The Office, Michael Scott, if you're familiar with The Office, Michael Scott's biggest wall, his biggest mountain was self-created, is that he wanted to be liked. And because he wanted to be liked, he was completely ineffective as a manager. He thought that by being liked and being everybody's friend, he was uniting the team. And that's not how uniting a team works. You don't have to get everybody to like you, and you don't have to get everyone to like each other. Uniting a team is about everybody moving in the same direction to get the mission done. Think about sports teams. If anyone on the call has been active in playing sports or active in any type of team sport, you know that it takes a team. And you may not like your teammates. Some people you may be social with, some people you may not be, but you have a common goal. It's to win the game. And that's what your job is as a project lead, is to figure out how do you unite this team and get them working in the same direction. And don't focus. Somebody mentioned attitude. We're going to talk about attitude, culture, and all that other stuff in just a little bit. But this is something you have to be aware of. Right? Is what are the hiccups along the way? Now, we're going to talk about this at the very end about some of the challenges you can face. One of the challenges is this: is uniting a team. You may have people on the team who are bitter because you got the job. That should have been me. Or maybe you're newer to the group, and here all of a sudden you're rising up among the ranks. This is not a leadership thing. This is a personal thing, and I'll share this with you. It's not your job to care what other people think about you. The one thing you have to know is your intention. Know that you are putting yourself out there, you're building this brand, and you are pushing yourself forward and doing it with the best intention, not manipulating people, not hurting people, not like stepping on heads to get ahead, but you're working from the best in place. You don't have to get people to like you. You have to be aware about how people think about you, but your job is not to make them like you. Your job within an organization is to push that organization's mission forward. And that goes right into the second part of planning goals and milestones. It's your job as the leader of this project to tell everyone, what is the goal? What are we doing? Right? Our goal is to build a car, right? Our goal is to build a car. Great. I need to know that that's the goal. I also need to know specifics. I'm sure all of you have heard about SMART goals. We're going to hear the word SMART goals over and over and over again, because this is where it starts. It starts with planning your goals and milestones of saying, okay, where are we going and how are we getting there? You have to be the vision for your team. You can't go into an organization or into a project or a team and be like, I don't really know what we're doing. Management has given me this project, but I don't really know what we're doing. Often I see as a mistake that new leaders make whether they're working on a project or leading a team, is they badmouth upper management as a way to unite the team. That does not work. Do not find a common enemy among your team to include upper management or other programs or other departments, and find that as a unifier. Because what that does is it may feel in the very beginning like it's a unification tool. It's saying, oh, well, Candace and I don't like Julia, so therefore Candace and I are good people. But subconsciously, both of us, as we're talking smack about Julia, are thinking, is Candace talking smack about me when I'm not in the room? Or is Carolyn talking about me when I'm not in the room? Like, it does not breed trust. Tearing people down does not breed trust. What breeds trust is honesty, transparency, and truth. So when you're planning your goals and your milestones, one way to help you unite the team is involve them in the process of creating those goals and milestones. Look, I'm your leader. We're building a car. This is what we're doing. We are tasked to create a car that has a fully loaded snack bar in the back seat, specifically dealing with cereal. We need to be able to make sure the milk is cold and the cereal does not spill when eating it in the back of the car. That's our project. The company or the organization or my boss has given us 1 year to do it. Do you think we can do that? By asking a question of the team of, do you think we can do that? You're showing them that you value their opinion. Now, the worst thing you can do when you ask them for their opinion is ignore it and do nothing with it, right? So when people start to give you suggestions, you can't take all of the suggestions, but you have to have a reason as to why that suggestion is not going to work, right? And that's sometimes the difficult conversations you have to have as a leader is like, thank you, Candace, for that suggestion. I don't think that let me think on that, and I'll talk it over with my supervisor and see if that's going to work, and I'm going to get back to you with a response. And don't just dismiss it. Don't not get back to that person. You want to make sure that it's very clear to everybody that their opinion matters and that you're hearing what they're saying. And this definitely comes into play when it comes to planning goals and milestones. If your team does not feel that the goal or the project end game is possible, your job as the leader is to tell that to upper management to say, in consulting with my team, we don't think that's going to be possible, and this is why. Parts take 6 months to get in alone. And then once we get the parts in, we have to do fabrication on those parts in order to make them meet the specs. That's going to take at least 3 months in design, let alone 4 months in application. So you have to have reasons as to why it's not going to work. But you as a team are working on this together. Your job, again, as a project lead is kind of bringing in the group. It's getting everybody going in the right direction. It's almost like a herding dog, right? Not saying that people are sheep. Let's not use that as an analogy. But your job is to bring everybody together and moving in the right direction and keep them on task. Instead of just like, I don't know what we're doing. Yeah, I'll get back to you. It's to provide guidance and support. This is leadership. Leaders don't have jobs, right? Like as a leader, I've been in management roles. I don't have a job, right? My job really, I don't produce anything. I don't make the company any money. My job is to work for you as my team. And that's your job as a project lead, is to make it clear to your team that you work for them. Tell me what you need. If you think we can get this done in 18 months instead of 12 months, tell me what you need and why this can't happen. So planning the goals and milestones happen up front. They happen in a safe place where all ideas are heard, maybe not acted on, but they're definitely heard and noted. And if an action or an idea is not going to work out, it needs to be explained with honesty, tact, and just factual data as to why it won't work. And it's also your job as a project lead to track and communicate the progress of your team, right? You got to tell them, we're going to get this done in 18 months, and we're 6 months in, and where's the stuff? Like, we don't have any of this yet. Where are we getting this material, and when is it going to be in? And it's also about celebrating milestones that are actually hit when you're tracking the progress. And it's providing feedback all along the way. Okay, I'm just taking a pause because I see all these questions coming in, and I just want to make sure I hit them. Okay, so someone wrote in, I think I ask my team what they need from me too often. That is perceived as annoying. What's the sweet spot? Ooh, we're going to get to that, Sarah. Thank you. We're going to talk about that as your communication strategy. Everybody likes to be led differently. That's the key. That is the mistake that I would say probably top 5 mistakes that most new leaders make is they try a blanket approach of, well, I'm going to ask everybody what they need. And to some people, that feels micromanaged. To other people, that feels like you're paying attention. So it's navigating through that, and I'll get more onto that. So how do you move forward if you're worrying about your team liking you? How do you compartmentalize what is blatant without being disrespectful? The only thing you can control is yourself, your behavior, your emotions, your actions, your attitude. That's all you can control. You cannot control other people. What personally works for me is knowing my intention. Is I am doing the best job with what I have and what I know. Brene Brown, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, she's a sociologist at the University of Houston, I believe in Texas, and social researcher. She studies shame and a bunch of other things. And years ago, she had mentioned you can see people one of two ways. The people are doing the best with what they have and what they know, or people are malicious. And how you see them will impact how you see the world and how you interact with the world. And so I look at myself of, I am doing the best with what I have and what I know at the time that I'm performing the act. And I have to expect that and be mindful that people are coming from that same place, and show some mercy if it doesn't actually work out that way. And it's about having open conversations. So we'll talk about that when we talk about a communication strategy. But it is also about providing feedback along the way, to tracking progress, to just get back on the project lead. So you basically have 4 jobs as a project lead: uniting a team, that's tricky, we'll get into that, planning goals and milestones, tracking the progress, and providing the feedback. So now we're getting into the third part of our conversation of, now you have been selected. So you've built your brand so that you get picked. Hey, pick me because I'm a really good candidate. To what is the job that you're actually signing up for? Now, how do you merge those two together? How do you merge who you are as a brand, as a person, with the jobs of a project lead and make it authentically your own? So our next goal question is, what trait do you think is most important for a leader among peers to possess? I'm going to answer one of the questions Karen had asked. How do you lead a team when you are the only one who does not have a leadership position, but you're the subject matter expert? They need you, Karen, right? Everybody has value. They need you because you know the goods, right? Like if I could have all the car parts, but I don't know how to make the car, you become extremely valuable to me if you know how to make a car. Put a car together. I don't know what the analogy, like what car, they're put together, right? They're made. So it's coming out of saying you do have value. Again, this is leading from where you are. You have to act as a guide to those people in management / leadership positions because they need you. So I think sometimes we sell ourselves out before we even, we sit ourselves out before we even get a seat at the table, because we think well, I'm just a subject matter expert, or I'm just a doer, or I'm just an engineer. We're not just anything. You are a subject matter expert. You have value. You have knowledge they do not have. So I don't know if they're making you feel like you're unable to lead, or maybe it's your own self-doubt that's coming in, but know that you have value. Everybody has value in the roles that they possess and the information that they can put forward. And we'll talk about this. I have a little story to tell dealing with Pixar and transparency, especially when it's not good transparency. So hopefully that helped. So good communication. Yes. Communication is key. We'll talk about this with communication a little bit later, but it's amazing how we all communicate every single day, whether it's text, phone, email, through language interpretation, whether it be sign language or using interpreters, interpretive dance. I mean, we definitely communicate through all different modes and methods. Yet when it comes to the workplace, it's really difficult. It's like all of a sudden we've become very socially awkward and we don't know how to have conversations. COVID has exacerbated this a little bit because we've been dealing so much with email that when people if you're in a position where your office is asking you to come back, there is kind of a social stunting, if you will, of interaction between employees. So, but communication is key, so 79%. Authority is good, to the 1.5%. Authority is good, but to Karen, your subject matter expertise is your authority. You don't need to have a title to have authority, which is the beauty of peer delegation. Transparency, again, is key, and that comes through in communication. So we'll talk about those. So now we're talking about you, your brand, project lead, how do we bring you together? So I want you to think about your leadership style. This is a part of your brand, but it is not solely your brand. So your leadership style is, how do you want to lead the team that you're leading and the project that you're leading? I often tell people to think about people, real or imagined, meaning fiction, leaders that you see, and what are some traits that you like or you don't like. I have learned the best management style by leaders that I didn't like their management style. So you can always learn, no matter where you are, you can learn from good, bad, the ugly. But I learned my best lessons. Like we learn our best lessons from failure. We often learn our best lessons from leadership, from mistakes, and thankfully mistakes that others have made. So you don't have to make those same mistakes. So define your leadership brand. Think about that. How do you see yourself? Who do you want to emulate? And this is where we kind of tie that branding into it. If you want to look at somebody, like when I ask this question to different clients, a lot of them will say like Elon Musk or Richard Branson. They'll name people that have definitely a brand. Michael Jordan, LeBron James. There are people who have a brand. What makes them have that brand? And is that something you admire? Is it arrogance? Is it wealth? Like, what is it that is their brand? I know Elon Musk tends to be a hot topic for people. Either people like him or they don't. I find him a fascinating individual because he has what a lot of you said is important. It's transparency. He has a lot of transparency. He doesn't hide what he is and what he's doing. Yes, I have all this money and this is what I'm going to do. I want to do this. Why can't we do this? Right? He pushes the social norms and the status quo, looking for an answer of why we can't do something. So, but he's also very brash and abrasive. So I think that's something to be aware of as well. So we have people saying, I think we gravitate towards brands that are led by humility. Yeah, I think that's true for people who value humility. I think for people, and this is another part of your leadership style, is understanding your intention. Why is it that you're building this brand to be selected for a leadership role? Is it so that you can have the power to make decisions, the power to lead people, the power to influence the organization that you work with and move it in a direction that you feel is relevant? What is your intention of your leadership role? Right? Some would say, I'm sure that Elon Musk is, I don't know him personally, so I can't speak. I'm only going for what I hear people saying is, I'm sure people think he's looking for world domination, right? He's got a lot of money, more money than he knows what to do with. And he's like, look, we're going to go to space. I'm going to send a car out into space just so it can float out there, not a problem. I'm going to buy Twitter for billions and billions of dollars. I think the last price was like, what, $44, $46 billion of his own private money that he's going to use. Some could see that as world domination, right? And was just start taking things. Where you have other people who have a leadership brand that is based on what you were saying, Sarah, with humility and doing the better good. You look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They have a lot of money, yet now they're separated and divorced, but she still has a lot of money based on him, and they do good with their wealth. They are a brand that people forget Bill Gates and Microsoft. They see Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and they think that is giving back to the community. That is giving back to the world to make the world a better place. They're vaccinating children in impoverished areas and in third world countries because they believe that every child should have the right to survive and a right to live. So it's what is it that you want as your leadership style? And again, how does your mission and vision and values funnel and feed itself into that leadership style? And also, how does that leadership style show up in you and in the workplace? Because I can sit here and tell you that I believe in every child should have a vaccine, but then I'm spending all my money going to space. What does that say? Oh, I value your opinion, Candace. Oh, I do. And then I'm just like over here doing something else. I'm not paying attention, or I don't tell her why, like, thank you, that's a really good idea. I want to see if we can implement that. Or giving people credit where credit is due. So think about how your leadership, how your brand, the brand that is Sarah, that is Karen, that is Heather, that brand, how does that come through in your leadership style? And then also think about your initiatives. Normally as a leader, if you are leading a team, you have to have initiatives. But your initiative as a project lead in peer management and peer delegation is the project. So that's where you come up with your goals and milestones of, okay, this is our initiative. Our initiative is this, to get this project X done before a certain date. Now let's talk about attitude. Let's talk about culture. I've often been asked, is it better to lead a team I was never a part of, or is it better to lead a team that I was a part of? They're both hard. They're both difficult. One is not more easy than the other. When you are managing a team or a project, managing a project with people who were once and may return to be your peers, that's tricky waters to navigate, because you're working with people who have feelings and emotions, right? They tell us that there's no space for feelings and emotions in business, which that's bull honky, as my nana would say. That's bull honky. That's not true. We're human beings. Everything we do is based in feelings and emotions. And so you're dealing with that as a leader. And so many leaders think they can come in and just take this blanket approach of like, there's no feelings, there's no crying in baseball, right? We're gonna go through and do this. And it's like, no, you have to see me. The one thing in my experience, the things that people want the most, it's two things. This is why leadership fails, and I'm surprised that it fails because it's so easy. People want to feel seen, and people want to feel heard. Because when they feel seen and they feel heard, they feel valued. That's leadership 101. Those two things, that's it. Right? It's not about, meeting your budget and all that. Leadership is about making people feel seen and heard. Because when I don't feel seen or I don't feel heard, like Candace tells me these great ideas and I'm very dismissive, Candace doesn't have value. And when Candace doesn't have value, she doesn't feel invested in the project or in the company or in the organization. And when she doesn't feel invested, she's not going to put her best self forward. Why? Because I'm not putting my best self forward for her. So why should she do it for me? And this is where culture comes in. A culture within an organization or within a team is many things. It's the common language that they use. Most of you are government or support the government in one form or fashion. We all know the government has its own language, right? It has its own acronyms and the way that it talks about things and EBITDA and this and that. We have our own common language. We have our own. Not only do I tell you as a leader to come up with your own vision, mission, and value statement, I tell everybody to come up with their own mission, vision, and value statement. So now you're leading a team of people who have their own vision of where they see themselves, and which may involve where they see the team going. So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with standards. You're dealing with, everybody has a different way of getting something done. You have performance to deal with. What is considered a good job? What I may consider acceptable may be less than by somebody else, or maybe more than somebody else. So if you are new to a team, I encourage you to go in like an anthropologist. Don't go in, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're getting stuff done. Kicking butt, taking names. We're getting this project done in six months. I know this said a year, but we're what we're doing. No. Sit back, listen, and actively listen. Actively listening means listening with intent, listening to hear for opportunities, listening for challenges, listening for things that are not spoken, right? I mentioned before that my background is in investigations and interrogation and elicitation of information. I get the most information from people when I'm not even talking. I just listen to what they're saying. And they tell me things and they're like, I've never told anybody that. Okay. Because I create a safe space for them to share. Because I'm not judging, I'm not talking over them, I'm not having preconceived notions of who they are and who they're coming to me as. I let them explain that to me. So to understand a culture, you have to actively listen, which also means asking questions. and asking really good questions. Can you tell me more about that? Would you mind sharing your challenges with me? And if so, what are those challenges? Why do you think that is? Very open-ended questions that allows them control of the conversation and to navigate the conversation. Listen to what people are telling you, and they will tell you the culture that they're from. Ask your team to just, like when you're having conversations with them, we'll talk about this with their communication strategy, but I'll touch on a little bit here, is creating a coaching culture. Creating a culture where you get to know your people just as much as they get to know you. It's a two-way street. Nobody likes to share when they're not being shared with, right? Candace is only going to give me half of her peanut butter and jelly sandwich until I'm not sharing my chips and my cupcakes with her. As soon as that sharing stops, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich isn't coming back anymore. So you have to understand that communication is a two-way street. You have to give as much as you receive or expect others to give you, okay? So if you are not new to the culture, you have an insider's look into what the team is and what struggles they face and what is the idea behind maybe the attitudes that they have. But now you're in a unique perspective where you were once part of that group, but you're not part of them anymore. Not the same way you were. And that's hard. People have a really hard, like if I come in as your leader, as your supervisor or project lead, you don't know me from anybody, we don't have to get over that hurdle of what once was. It's a grieving, if you will, of, hey, Candace and I used to go to lunch all the time. We used to talk about how horrible our boss is, and uh-oh, now I'm the boss. Now Candace and I can't, or can we, have those conversations anymore. So it's a grieving of what once was, and it's now when you're changing people's roles and their dynamic, the culture itself shifts. And you have to be okay with that. You don't have to like it, but you have to be okay with it. Of if Candace now becomes my supervisor and she can't share as much as she used to share with me before, I respect Candace. And I have to respect that her new role has expectations that I'm unaware of, and that our relationship has changed. But have a conversation about how your relationship has changed, right? Instead, most people just sit in this discomfort and feel like, how do I make things better? And why is Candace being so bossy? She is the boss. That's her job now, right? That's what she's supposed to be doing. Okay. Next, I want to talk about details and your roles. Detailed roles and responsibilities. We have about 9 minutes left, so I apologize. I got really excited. So I just will go through this. You're developing a communication strategy. I'm sorry, I'm one ahead. Your roles and responsibilities. This is key to reaching your goals and milestones. Everybody on the team has to know what they're responsible for. Candace, this is you. This is what you're responsible for. Boom, 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 boom. And you're creating SMART goals for all of those. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to the actual project, and timely, right? We all need to know, Candace needs to know what she's doing, but she also needs to know what the rest of the team is doing, so that we are able to say, like, okay, that's Candace's part. Somebody comes to me with this question, I can give it over to Candace. So you have to have one-on-one conversations with people, as well as a collective of everybody. This is everyone's responsibility within this program and this project. Next is developing a communication strategy. This is where we talked about the coaching culture. This is where we talk about getting to know your employees, actively listening. It's about being powerful in your communication and making sure that you are who you say you are and you act the way you say that you're going to act. That your emails and your action and your verbal cues, your dialogue, your voice track matches your actions. They have to match, because what happens when your actions and words don't match, people will always go with the negative. I have an open door policy, but my door is always closed. They're not worried about open door policy. They're seeing that your door is always closed. People will go with what they see, so your actions, more so than your words. So be cognizant of that. We also talk about a communication strategy of providing feedback. Feedback, again, has to be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. So your feedback has to be all fact, no feelings, no emotion, even though that's where we come from, but all of that. And you should not be providing feedback on something you didn't discuss in this section. If you didn't tell them that these were their roles and responsibilities and how you were going to measure their success, then you cannot come back in this section and give them feedback on something you didn't tell them that they were accountable for. So make sure that you're aware of that your goals have to be so specific that, and work with your team. This also helps in uniting your team. This works with your team to say, hey, what do you think you can do? Because when Candace says that she can do this within a time frame and she doesn't do it, I come back to her and I just use her words back to her, not at her, but I use her, take her words and give it back to her and say, you told me you could get this done in 6 months. What has happened that this is now looks like it's not going to be done in 6 months? Okay, let's course correct and come up with a situation. Okay. So I'll answer some of those questions. So difficult conversations, stick to the facts. Know your intention and stick with what you've already had a conversation with dealing with your SMART goals and say, is this something I've already told them about? If so, difficult conversations sometimes are very necessary. So make sure that that's key. And this is also about not only developing a good communication strategy is key for telling your goals and your path forward, but also communicating progress. So you should have meetings often about how is the project going. This was somebody that mentioned earlier about how do you manage people differently, right? Like you go to some people asking how things are, and some people get annoyed, some people like it. When you have a coaching culture and you're talking to people all the time, you can figure out how they like to be communicated with. When you are setting up the roles and responsibilities and the goals and milestones, come up with a plan that is mutually beneficial to both of you of how are we going to keep each other accountable? How will I know when you are having problems? And when will I know when a project is finished? Should we have weekly conversations where we just go get coffee? Should we have a weekly email? Should we have a phone call? Should it be monthly? Don't leave it all up to the person, up to the employee. You do want to make sure that you are getting your needs met as well. So just be aware of that. But it's like, okay, I need to know, I have to tell my supervisor what's going on, and I have to do that monthly. So we need to meet with my team members at least twice a month, at least in the beginning, to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Okay. We talked about SMART goals. The last question is what concerns do you have in managing your peers? So feel free to answer that question. Somebody asked, how do you create a culture virtually when the team is small, stays quiet, and unresponsive? That's one-on-one conversations of your expectation of them and how they participate in meetings, and that you need people to participate. And ask them, I noticed that you're not participating in meetings. This is, again, one-on-one. You don't call them out on a meeting. But this is a one-on-one conversation of, I noticed that you don't really participate in calls. Why is that? Well, I'm really shy and I don't like, okay, then maybe you accept that, like maybe they're quiet in meetings. But when we do talk about your part of the project, I'm going to need you to speak up, right? You have to lay down the expectation. Sometimes people feel like it's difficult. That's why they call difficult conversations. But you're going to be thankful. Never push off a difficult conversation, because I'm telling you, it only gets worse. So just deal with it at the time. So the number one issue that people feel like they're going to have with managing their peers is they're not going to acknowledge and respect your authority. Okay, so I want to talk about this. Everything we've talked about this far, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but when you build your brand and you build this excellent reputation in the workplace, they have no other choice than to know that you are the best person for this job. Maybe they don't like it because they are mad that they didn't get that job. But when you set yourself up, you can only stay in your own lane, right? So if you set yourself up for success and you're rewarded, there is no shame in that game. You take it on, but then you have to have a conversation with the person saying, call it out. No matter how many people I've interviewed, when there is a difficult conversation between me and somebody, whether it's an employee, whether it's a subject that I'm interviewing, if you do not acknowledge the emotion that is in the room, you are not getting anywhere. And that's where people don't want to have a conversation, because it's uncomfortable. Candace, I notice every time I talk to you, you turn your back to me, you roll your eyes, you let out a heavy sigh. I need to know what's going on. Tell me, why tell me what you're feeling. Share with me what you're feeling and work it that way. Because if you come at Candace's behavior as punitive, she's going to back away and shut down. And then you're not going to get anything out of anybody. So what you need to do is address the elephant in the room and then start working forward. And with that, calling it to the table, acknowledging the difficult conversation and having it right off the bat, they're going to start to recognize your authority of like, oh, she's serious about this, right? She's serious about this role. And and it's coming from a place of authenticity. And that is going to come through in your communication strategy as well. If you're somebody who's really shy, putting yourself out there like, hey, everybody, let's have a team meeting. They're going to smell that that's not you. And they're going to be like, something ain't right here. She's trying to fool somebody. Have you come through as your own leadership person that works best for you and you're most comfortable with. And then that's what people are going to respect and respond to. People respect who you are and they respond to who you are, not who you're trying to be. And lack of clarity in roles and responsibilities. That's your job as a project lead. Everything we talked about deals with one of these fears that you're going to face. The outlining of the goal and setting milestones, as well as tracking progress and telling roles and responsibilities, should be your first course of action with your individuals. Once you get to know them as a people and as a team, then you want to say, okay, this is where we're going and this is how we're going to do it. Is everybody on board? If not everyone's on board, we got to step back and say, okay, this train ain't leaving until everybody's on it. So let's figure out how we can make this work. So with that, I ask if you have we've kind of talked about that, any questions that you have. And I just I know that it felt for me a little rushed because I was like getting so excited about other stuff. So I apologize if it felt kind of rushed at the end. They do have, NextGen has all of my contact information that they can share with you. Every time I present at NextGen, I open it up to everyone. If you have questions or you have a problem that you're dealing with that's specific to your team, don't hesitate to reach out to me and we can talk through it. We can either email, you tell me which is the best way to talk to you, whether that's phone, we can talk and figure out what is the best solution for you moving forward. And I can provide you guidance on that if you want. So just feel free to know that, that my email door is always open. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. You've been able to answer Q&A throughout, so I think we have that covered. But I know I personally just walked away from your remarks with a lot of takeaways and things I want to think about, and some ideas that are a little scary, like what other people think of me. But anyway, thank you so much for your comments. We just also want to thank our 2022 NextGen Partner Alliance for helping us put on NextGen Summit. And a few quick reminders. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation form in order to get your credit. And if you haven't already done so, go over to the exhibit hall to check out our amazing booths. I think they look really wonderful, and they're filled with additional resources and information. Up next, our lunch session begins at 12:30 Eastern Time, and you can access that by going through the conference hall in the main environment. And there are going to be 3 presentations. One, creativity and productivity, how to get your work done and still be innovative. The next one is public service as a pursuit of passionate purpose. And the last one is relearning how to learn, 7 essential life skills. So we'll see you in the next session. Bye for now. And thank you again so much, Carolyn. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.